My parents died 4 months ago due to long-standing health issues and old age. My mother first, and then 3 weeks later, my father. My parents had 2 sons and 1 daughter. I'm 38 and my brothers are 46 and 47. My brothers lived at my parents' house. All their lives, our parents catered to them, hand and foot. They fed their egos 3 meals a day. As they aged, it became harder and harder, and eventually they were just worn out by my brothers. Throughout the last few years, my parents tried to set boundaries, but my brothers took it as a declaration of war. In the end, they pretty much lived in fear of my brothers. When my parents died, they left me the house and some money. I was shocked. I, like everyone else, assumed my brothers would get it all. They left a letter saying they greatly regretted having favored my brothers and for having to rely on me in their old age, and as a compensation for having financially supported them the past 15 years, they left me the house and $525,000 in insurance payouts to be divided between the 3 of us. They acknowledged in the letter that they knew the house and my $175,000 doesn't come close to financially compensating me, but they hoped it at least helped. My plans are to use my share of the inheritance to fix up the house. It's an old house and it needs considerable work to bring it up to code. My brothers had no intention of helping me with the house. They continued being lazy, arrogant, and entitled. I continued to pay all the utility bills and whatever else the house needed, but I couldn't afford to keep paying. I asked them to move out several times and they flat out refused. My brothers also went through their inheritances like it was nothing. They're quickly running out of money. They bought cars, went to Vegas, and just spent like there was no tomorrow. I had enough of trying to be reasonable and demolished half the house while they were on their cruise. My brothers went on a cruise last month, and during their time away, I packed all their things into 2 storage units. I paid 6 months in advance for them, and then I just let the construction crew start working on the house. My brothers returned to a construction site. They called and texted me a few hundred times, but I never picked up. Eventually, they got other family members to contact me. Everyone's making me out to be a monster. Apparently, I'm a terrible sister, and my parents would be disappointed in me for leaving my brothers homeless and living in a motel. I've done enough for them. I've supported them in some ways or another my whole life. I tried to be reasonable, but they were unreasonable and insanely entitled. So, am I the idiot for demolishing our family home while my brothers went on vacation? Not the idiot. You're a boss. I love this. Sell the land to a developer and keep all the money. You darn well know they were not going to move out peacefully. Tell the people calling you a monster to take in 2 grown darn men if they're so concerned. Your parents made it clear that the house was yours and left it to you for a reason. So you've not disappointed your parents in any way. Your brothers were abusive to your parents for years and now want to continue that tradition with you. Your relatives can house your brothers if they're so concerned about them. My advice? Sell the property and buy a house or property somewhere else. Start afresh in a new place that your brothers can't lay claim to, and invest in security cameras and whatnot. Also, it might be a good idea to cut contact with your brothers and the relatives that support them. This, children, is what we call the nuclear option. It should only be reserved for special occasions. You should speak with a lawyer and prepare yourself for litigation, especially if they have some money left over. You illegally evicted your brothers. You're a landlord, and they're residents even if you didn't plan for it. Depending on tenants' rights in your state, they could come after you with a lawsuit. You are the idiot. You really opened yourself up to liability here. Agree, she should have gotten a lawyer right away. Long-standing tenants and even squatters have rights. Judges do not look favorably on people who leave someone without a place to live. OP, please consult a lawyer. I can assure you that when construction is done, they'll try to come back. They will try charm, guilt, and threats. Protect yourself and stay strong. Do not let them set 1 foot in your house. They won't leave. The police probably won't help, since I'm guessing any IDs your brothers have show this address as their home address. Then you'll spend a year or more going to court to evict them. Update. Legally, they didn't have any tenants' rights. I did get some advice from the husband of a friend of mine who's a lawyer. My brothers were legally evicted by my parents before their death, multiple times, but they always found a way to get my parents to let them back in. And I also had paperwork drafted up that they were being evicted, and they were aware. They just didn't think I would demolish half the house. They felt they had more time to verbally beat me down and into submission. Sure, I could have gone about it all differently, and there's always the option for them to sue me, but I really doubt it. They can barely afford to keep a roof over their head. At best, they have a few thousand left of their inheritance, and at worst, they have a few hundred. Either way, I seriously doubt they'd spend their last money on suing me, instead of, say, using it to gamble or some crap like that. My mom died when I was in kindergarten, and my dad didn't remarry until I, 26 male, was 22. He didn't date at all while my siblings and I were kids. His wife is okay. She's not my favorite person, and I find her a little off in her relationship with me and my siblings. They feel the same. She gives the vibe that she expected to be accepted as our motherly figure instead of as our dad's partner or wife. We're close to Dad. He's never given us the same vibe. He'll still hang out with us individually without his wife or each other around. But she definitely gives that vibe. It's weird to me because we're all adults, and I'm the baby of the family, so my siblings were even older when she married our dad. And to think she would fill any kind of mom role in my mind is weird. My dad loves her though, and he's happy. She's nice enough other than this, so we don't rock the boat. However, there is a new situation where I did start to rock the boat, and I wonder if I'm the idiot for that. So my fiance Ellie and I are getting married, and we decided we both wanted to walk down the aisle. She wanted to walk with her parents, so I thought it'd be kind of cool to ask my dad. He said yes. He got really emotional about it. He said he wished my mom could be here to walk with us, and yeah, I do too, so much. My dad's wife later approached me and told me she would gladly walk me down the aisle instead, and she wanted me to know that I didn't need to ask my dad instead. I asked her what she meant, and she assumed I wanted her but was afraid to ask. I told her that wasn't what I wanted at all. She told me that was unexpected, and when she heard I had asked Dad, she expected I would want her instead. So I asked her why she expected to walk me down the aisle when she was not my mom. She looked offended when I asked her, and she told me I didn't need to be so tactless about it. I told her I was genuinely asking, and I told her I couldn't understand. She then said that she clearly misunderstood her relationship with my siblings and me, and that I could keep my thoughtless questions to myself. My dad was also confused by her reaction too. I told him what happened, but he had no idea. She's really angry though, so am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Frankly, the part that put her and it over the top for me was her seeming belief that you wanted her to walk you instead of your dad. Not even just with your dad, which would also already be a lot and very presumptuous. She's out of her mind. She likely assumed it was like the father-daughter or mother-son dances a lot of weddings do now, so the son had to ask his dad instead of his mother. It's awesome that she'd be prepared to walk with you and desires to connect and be a positive influence. However, she needs to realize she's not entitled to that and needs to respect your boundaries. Ideally, she would have offered to walk with you and accepted whatever your answer was. Honestly, I don't get the stepmom entitlement thing. My mom died when I was a kid. My dad remarried twice. The second time, third wife, when I was in my early 50s. She loved to introduce me as her stepdaughter. I only met her a few times, and she is way closer to my age than Dad's. Just marrying someone doesn't make you a real parent. Perhaps it's time to talk honestly with your dad about how you feel about his wife, and let him handle that. My mom is a single mom, and we struggle. I'm nearly adult male, the oldest, and I have 4 younger siblings, a young female teen, a female tween, a male tween, and a female pre-tween. We have 2 different dads. My oldest sisters and I share a dad, and he walked out on us while Mom was pregnant with my twin sister. A year later, she found another guy, and he was bad news, but my mom was so desperate for a guy and overlooked a lot of red flags. She had 2 kids with him, and then he stole from my mom and left without ever looking back and left us in a really tight position. After that, my mom would lean on me a lot, and she asked me to step up and be there for my siblings and help more around the house. And I did it because I wanted to help my mom. I hoped it would mean she wouldn't rush into another relationship with another dude who was bad news. It was tough though. Having to help with homework, feeding my siblings, and being responsible for most of the cleaning was a lot. My mom still did stuff. It was just that she had to work and couldn't be there all the time. But after a year or so of that, she started to verbally take her frustrations out on me. She'd complain about calls from my school. I still struggle in school, or if I forgot to do something. She'd tell me I couldn't let her down and that I needed to act more like an adult and do better. When I was a young teen, she asked me if I could start making money, and I did. I helped around the neighborhood for some extra money, and I got a part-time job a year later and gave Mom the money from that. But it was like she'd take it all out on me more. If I got home late from work or school, she'd tell me to cut it out, and I needed to be more responsible. If a bill wasn't paid on time, she'd tell me to be less useless and more useful. If I couldn't do something, she'd ask me what good I was doing. She'd tell me I wasn't a kid anymore and needed to stop expecting the life of one out of nowhere sometimes. Eventually, I got so tired of it, and it became so constant, that I started saving money so I could get away ASAP. Mom doesn't know about it, and I still give her the rest of what I make because it's really the only way to save without her knowing. My mom expects me to stay here and help for several years until my siblings are all older. I'll be out of the house as soon as I turn 18, and I won't consider staying for anyone, not even my siblings. Mom has been extra nasty lately, and she was saying I should start looking for a full-time job now so I can have a full second income. I was like, bold of you to assume I'll be getting a full-time job to help out more. And Mom was then even angrier, and she told me I needed to darn well get over myself and accept it. She told me I was such an idiot for implying that I could abandon my siblings like that. She was so loud that my siblings heard, and they were upset at me too. Not the idiot. Get out of that abusive household as quickly as safely possible. Maintain contact with the younger siblings if possible and healthy for you, because your mother will probably turn her focus to the next oldest, and she'll need emotional support. Remember, parentification is abuse, and you don't have to suffer for one moment longer for any reason. OP, if it hasn't been suggested already, I would see if you can find your birth certificate and social security card and hide those away along with your savings. You may also want to do a credit check to be sure your mom hasn't opened credit cards in your name. You've been parentified by your mom, and that's wrong. Move out as soon as you can. I'd suggest blocking your mom so she can't harass you with calls or texts, etc. Don't tell her where you moved to, but try to keep lines of communication open for your younger siblings, because the burden will most certainly shift onto them. Best of luck to you. We went on a family cruise that's become a yearly tradition. The only difference is that my son, who's 18 years old, wanted to bring his girlfriend, Morgan, this time, and we said it sounded like a great idea. We paid for her trip and everything she'd need, and it was pretty costly. Because of this, we couldn't pay for our teen niece. Her parents don't have much expendable money. They're pretty poor, and she was unable to come on this trip. We promised we'd go on another cruise during the summer and pay for her to come. I felt bad we couldn't bring her, but we wanted our son's girlfriend to feel welcomed. Well, she's been a little difficult. I had met her before and thought she was a lovely girl, but I got a completely different interpretation of her on this trip. When she first saw her room, she said she was expecting more, and it seemed small. That really rubbed me wrong, but I ignored it. My son told me she came from a wealthy family. My kids were sad their cousin wasn't here, but I told them to spend time with Morgan. Unfortunately, they've been getting into fights. Morgan yelled at my kids because they used a handicap elevator specifically designed for disabled people. She said it was rude and entitled. My kids pointed out that they got lost and had no idea where they were. They found the elevator and decided to take it up. They said no disabled people were using the elevator, but if they were, they would have given it up immediately. But Morgan said it was really entitled and crappy of them. I don't understand her logic here. It seems like she's starting fights over nothing, and I'm confused by how she's parenting my kids. She's been getting into multiple fights with my daughters, who are exhausted by her. I overheard them talking about how awful she was at dinner and approached them to tell them to shut up. People can hear them, and we don't want Morgan to feel unwelcome. They said they were tired of her. She's super entitled and still complaining that we didn't spend money on a better cruise or better things to do. Unbelievable. because this cruise was around $2,000 for each person. They said I was an idiot for leaving their cousin at home and inviting this entitled person instead. They said their cousin should be here, not this lady, and I told them we needed to show support for their brother's relationship, someone who could be a part of the family one day. I'm sad to leave my niece home too. Am I the idiot here? You are the idiot. It was nice that you wanted to let your son have his girlfriend along, but if it was a money issue and she supposedly comes from money, she should have paid for herself. You obviously had not truly spent any time with her prior to this trip. This reads disaster on any trip. Telling your kids to suck it up on their vacation because she may be family someday? How long has your son been dating this wonderful girl? If she comes from a well-off family, why didn't her parents pay for anything? Short-sighted and really inconsiderate to your own kids and niece. Sounds like your son is the golden child if you have to kowtow to his entitled girlfriend. He's only 18, so do you really think she'll be his forever? OP, you ruined everyone's vacation by being short-sighted and allowing your son to dictate the invite list. Stop being an even bigger idiot by trying to get your daughters to spend time with her. They obviously do not care for her, and she doesn't like them. Forcing them to spend time will not fix this and will only widen the chasm. This is my first pregnancy, and my mother-in-law's been overly excited. She's been waiting for grandchildren since her kids were 22. My in-laws live 20 minutes away from us, and she's never wanted to leave her home until she was told I was pregnant. They've decided to build a house next door to us to be closer to my baby. This house will be complete by the end of this year. She'll watch the baby when I return to work, as my mother's not yet retired. She informed me yesterday that she'd set up a room for the baby when their house was complete. I asked what the room's purpose was, and she said for my crib and anything I buy for the baby. They're calling it a playroom. She tried to give us her 34-year-old crib, and I was adamant with my husband that I didn't want it due to safety reasons. After a back and forth, he finally said okay and told his mom. She's still planning on using this crib for herself. She knows I'm not comfortable with this crib, and I'm also not comfortable with her building what I believe is a nursery for my child at her house. My husband's side of the family is extremely close, to the point where I've been told by my husband his mother comes before me. I again asked him to speak with her about not using this 34-year-old crib, as I don't believe I should be the one to say anything due to the family dynamic. Am I the idiot for being too dramatic in this situation? I've been told by my husband his mother comes before me, and 20 minutes away is too far, so they're moving next door? Molly, you're in danger, girl. Absolutely. His mother comes before me. After hearing that in no uncertain terms, I couldn't imagine marrying this mommy's boy, let alone having a baby with him. And living next door? Her life is going to be a nightmare. Mother-in-law wanted all the new nursery items in her house and the old crap to OP. Not the idiot OP, but they're going to start pushing you out before you leave the hospital. Oh my God, girl, seriously. You really screwed yourself marrying that guy. He already told you he would put his mother first, and he meant it. I bet her new house has a bedroom for him too. And then mother-in-law can have both her babies live with her while you live next door, and she lets you have visitation. For the record, you are not being dramatic. You're getting a little glimpse of the dynamic you'll be fighting for the rest of your life if you accept this.